Hi, today we're going to talk about sewing clear-faced masks, and that's one thing we've been struggling with locally is there's been a demand for these, but they're really hard to make. And I made a bunch, a pattern by a local lady here in Iowa, Laura von Wonderhausen or something, I can't even say her name. So anyway, great video, really helpful, but it was a lot of work. And I got to thinking about this mask pattern. Now, this is a pattern I first started making back in March. It's now August. And it already has a really flat front. Unlike your pleated mask that has all these folds, and unlike your Olsen, which has a line down the middle, this style of mask has a very flat front, but it's still very cupped. This one has a middle pocket. I got to thinking, why can't I adapt that to be more of a clear-faced? So I did some playing around, and here's my clear-faced version of this. Now the pattern for this I got off a video online, and it very quickly disappeared after the pandemic started. I don't know if they didn't want to be liable for masks made with this pattern, but it's my favorite pattern. I was really disappointed that everybody wants Olsen or pleated because I like this one. But anyway, I decided to use it for the clear-faced, and so I'm going to show you how I did that and how it works. I hope you enjoy this video, and have a great day. Okay, to start with, these are the pieces you need. You're going to need a piece of clear vinyl, and that's 2.5 by 4 inches. You need 2 of these, 2.5 by 10. So I've got my front pieces and my back pieces. So you're going to need a front piece and a back piece, 2.5 by 10. And these are your sides, your left and right. These are 2.5 by 3.5. And then your bottom piece is 3 by 10. So those are the size pieces that you need. Assembly is the same. The starting of assembly is the same as the other 9-piece face masks. But I'll go ahead and run through that assembly if you don't know how to do it. You're going to take a piece of clear vinyl. You're going to take one back piece, one front piece, line up your raw edges, and you're just going to stitch 1/4 inch down. And if you have some little clamps you want to use to hold that, I'm using these. They came from a flea market. You can do that. What I'm going to advise you to do though is when you put this in the sewing machine, pick up the foot and drop it down on here. Don't, because sometimes when we do chain stitching, you just keep feeding them in. That won't work with the vinyl because it'll just squish that right down. So pick up your foot, put the foot down on top of this and start sewing. So I'm going to sew down 1/4 inch. Alright, we sewed down the side, open that up. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So make sure you get the top on the top and the bottom on the bottom. Here's my polka dots, my blue. Here's my colored piece. Same thing. Sew 1/4 inch down the side. Alright, now you have your middle and your left and your right sewn on. Now we're going to do the top. Right sides together. And you're going to sandwich this between your 2 top pieces. So, lining up this edge, I'll pin it. Do not pin your vinyl though. I usually pin just a couple of places, and then we're going to stitch 1/4 inch. Alright, open that up. Same thing for the bottom. Make a sandwich. Stitch it. Now I don't worry about these, oops, I don't worry about that this always comes out a little bit longer. What happens is the fabric, as you sew it, stretches, but the vinyl doesn't, so the middle section always ends up a little shorter. I guess I could add fabric to the middle section when I cut it out, but when I get done I just trim that off. Alright, so sandwich what you've already sewn and sew that on there, making sure your bottom pieces are out of the way. Alright, we've got our basic structure done, and we're going to do a little pressing real quick. Do not press the vinyl, it will melt. Somebody keeps texting me. I'm going to press the end here, the end here, Flip it over. Just make sure it's open. Now, we're not going to do any pleating along the top edge. That's what's the beauty of this pattern. Because we're not pleating and it's a straight edge, instead of doing bias tape, I just fold this over about 1/4 inch, iron it, do the same to the other side. Then pin it. You're going to want to do that for both sides. Now your one side is wider than the other. Your narrow side is your top edge. So you're going to do that for both the top and the bottom. And then put some pins in it to hold it together. Because you're just going to edge stitch along here and that's going to hold it shut. I find this quicker than making bias tape, just to sew 1/4 inch. Alright, repeat along bottom edge. Alright, next step is, and I've already done it, is you're going to sew around your window. This really helps it lay flat without pressing, and if you tug on it while you're stitching it, then you make sure that it's where it needs to be. So stitch around your window. If you're going to add nose wire, also stitch along your top edge, but just your top edge. Ignore that I did my bottom, I wasn't paying attention, I just threw it in there. So if you're doing nose wire, also do your top edge. I still need to trim this off over here where it's not quite even, so I'm going to take my scissors and trim that. Now the reason why I sewed around my top edge is so I can add my nose wire. So I'm going to slip my nose wire in here and pin it, and then I'll show you what to do next. Alright, so I've added my nose wire and pinned it. What I use for nose wire, and I know this is really controversial, everybody's got different ideas, I just have galvanized wire from the hardware store. I cut off a 4-inch piece, I don't know if you can see that, and then I wrap my edges around and I curl them under so there's no sharp, no pokey, it's perfectly safe, and then I tuck it up in there and pin it in place. Okay, so you should have your window sewn shut, your top sewn, your sides trimmed if they needed trimming, then you're going to cut off your corners. And I made a little template, and this is 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. So if you take the corner of a piece of cardboard and you measure up 1 3/4 and over 1 3/4, and then you just connect your dots, you should have the right size. Yeah. We're going to mark this. Doesn't matter what you mark it with because you're going to be cutting that off. So you can use a pen. I usually use a pencil, but I thought you might want to see it. Well, that wasn't straight. You mark all 4 corners. And then you're going to stitch all the way around. Normally my bottom would be open and it would be pinned. So what you're going to do is you're going to stitch all the way around. Don't stitch on this line. Stitch right next to it just like you did along the top edge. Stitch right next to it. This is just basting to hold this together. And then when I do along the top, I'm going to go along that edge, drop down, go around my nose piece and back up and finish going around. Alright, you should have stitched all the way around your window and all the way around the outside. And if you've done a nose wire insert, you're going to have your pocket for your nose wire, which feels like my wire's under the pocket. Oh well. Now cut off your corners following the lines that you marked earlier or right next to your stitching. You could cut the corners off earlier, but I think it's easier to leave them because it just kind of helps hold everything in place. Alright, now with a hot iron, we are going to press. Now whatever side you want out, I think I like the more colorful dots out. You're going to press this down as far as it'll go because the vinyl is kind of stiff, so it's going to keep it. And then you're going to fold this one up, just overlapping slightly. And I want you to press these ends. And I usually use my fingers to feel where the vinyl starts, so I kind of know not to go too far. So I'm going to press that real good. And I actually can go up along this edge just a little bit, especially because my iron's not very hot. I'm going to press this edge, feeling where my vinyl is so I don't get that, and then just a little bit. We do this one again now that my iron's steaming. Okay, here comes the part that I don't know how to explain verbally. I just have to show you. You want to fold this back so it's in line, but now we want to angle this so it goes straight across. Right now it's down. So we're going to pull it. Let me zoom in closer and show that to you again. Okay, that's better. So we've got our sides ironed. You want to have it back, but you want this edge to be parallel to this one. So you're going to pull it up. And this is what really gives you more of a three-dimensional shape. When you get done with this thing, it is not going to lay flat. And I want to pin that. And you're going to do the same with this one, only it's going to be a little one because you don't have as much there. Fold it over and angle it. And right now you can see how it's making that cup shape. It's not going to lay flat. Now I made one like this, a couple, and then I decided I needed one more thing, and that's a little tuck in the middle here too. Let me get it so I can get a hold of it. I just think the sides are too wide. So I want to make a little tuck. I don't want it, I've already got a lot of thickness here, so I want this tuck to be in between those, and it doesn't have to be precise. It's just, I'm just adding. If you want to try it without this, that's fine. I think it just fits better with it. Now, I'm going to get my clamps, because we're going to fold this over, kind of matching our raw edges, and then we're going to fold it one more time. And that is thick. That's why you have to kind of have a heavy-duty machine to get through all that. I'm not even going to try to pin it. I'm going to use my clamps because I can't get pins through there very well. Then I'm going to sew along that edge. This seals in my raw edges and it creates my casing for my elastic. So I'm just going to sew along that edge. And I'm not going to worry about the pins because I can't get in there and get them out anyway right now. So I have contemplated maybe if you can't sew through all that thickness, maybe you could use bias tape to cover your edges. Right now though, this is really far from here, so if you were going to do bias tape over this, you'd have to, I mean, it would make more sense to adjust your pattern than to have to cut this off right now. If you wanted to do bias tape, I would cut this off and then put that on your pattern and see how that affects everything. Wait, I need to do my tuck. Which way was my other tuck? Up. And then raw edges, level. And then one more time, find some clamps. I have an old Nietzsche that will sew through this. Old Nikki that will sew through this just fine. My new Jonomi will not. So, alright, and you can see how it makes just a really nice cup, and we didn't have to do the other pattern that this kind of based on. You used curved pieces and you had to do a lot of pin tucks. 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 6 total, front and back. So I think this is easier because it's all straight pieces, and then you just do this folding and you get your nose wire. Alright, I'm going to sew this. Alright, your last step is to add elastic, and there's a million types of elastic and different styles of ways of doing this. I'm just going to show you my preferred method. I use a needle, stick it through the casing. It's usually easier to come in from the back side It might take a couple tries to get it through there, but you get the hang of it after a little bit. Then I'm going to knot my elastic. I think I cut this about 11 or 12 inches. This elastic is really stretchy though. Put a knot in each end. Trim it if you're way far from your end. That looks better. Then, holding this one like this one over, and I'm just going to loop this one around the other one. Basically just tied the one around the other one. When that does, it allows me to adjust it. So I just did a single slip knot with this short one around the other one. And now it's adjustable. And once people get adjusted where they want it, if they tie that knot lower, they can. And sometimes, a lot of times, I'll color this end and I'll say pull on the black end to adjust. I'll just take a little bit of a Sharpie. Alright, and that's how I made a clear-faced mask. Have a great day.